Team on the line because I think Brittany's the only one not on the line today. But yeah, with that being said, we can get started. And then also too, during this walkthrough, if there's any documents that you use in terms of the preparation or review, if you could share your screen during this call, that'd be really appreciated on our end, so we can follow along the process better. But with that being said, starting off, can you explain the beginning of the process after the appropriation funding is approved by Congress?
All right, so after the appropriation is approved by Congress, what we expect then is to receive the approved 132s from our J&B budget staff.
Okay, and then so before the preparation, the SF-132, can we go over the process of Treasury warrants in the specific situation of if an appropriation act has been approved, going over that process first before going over the preparation of the SF-132?
So the Treasury warrant process doesn't necessarily happen at the same time with the approved 132. So a lot of times the warrant is approved after we will see the SF-132. So there's not really a preparation involved with that.
Okay, so the Treasury warrants are issued to you after the SF-132s are prepared?
Yeah, I mean, generally around the same time, but, it comes after. We usually get the 132s first.
Okay, and then is that the same for both under a continuing resolution, and then if there is an Appropriations Act approved, is that the same with Treasury warrants being issued after the 132?
So during the continuing resolution, no warrants are issued at that time, and the recording of budgetary is done with the CR chart that is provided by the J&B budget staff.
Okay, and then I guess in terms of, sticking with SF-132, so do all the DOJ components prepare their own SF-132, or is there one component who handles preparing all the 132s?
The various offices, boards, and divisions work with a specific J&B budget staff analyst to prepare their SF-132s.
Okay, that sounds good. But in terms of actually preparing it, it will be a JMD budget analysis that prepares the SF-132. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And I was going to say the request comes from the component.
Okay, that sounds good. And then, so what information are you looking at when preparing the SF-132? So I know you said that
we don't. That's not our office.
Oh, okay.
O&R is not involved with the actual preparation or the budget request of the SF-132. Mm-hmm. That's all the components, the board's division. That's them. So that's separate from O&R.
Okay, so all the components.
That sounds like Monica. I think that's you, Monica.
Yes. Hi. How are you? I'm sorry I'm late. Yeah, I was just going to say exactly what you just said.
Okay.
Okay, so in terms of preparing, it's the components reach out of their different requests to a JMD budget analysis, and then they work. They work or they prepare the 132 based off input from the components. Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then so after the preparation of 132. So like who reviews the 132, and like what information are you looking at when reviewing these requests?
So that would be a JMD budget staff question.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So just keep one thing in mind, maybe this will help you out as well as you're thinking about it. O&R is just recording what's been actually processed from, looking at the actual document itself. We're just processing the transactions inside of UFMS. And the JMD budget staff is doing all the other legwork. We don't get involved with, how they come up with the requests, what they're asking for. We don't get involved with any of that.
Okay, so in terms of like the O&R, really the only thing that you perform on your end is like recording the entries within UFMS, and then also I'm assuming too like uploading like the documents in UFMS, like the SF-132. Is that all the responsibilities that you perform in terms of this process?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And then, so moving forward, so like after the SF-132 is approved by within the JMD budget staff, what would be like the next steps in that, or what would be the next steps in the process, or would that be more of a JMD budget question?
You could ask JMD budget staff, but actually, once it's approved with JMD budget, they're submitted to OMB for approval.
Okay, sounds good. And then like within JMD budget, I think we noted in the past there's like two levels of review, where it's first reviewed by a senior analysis or like an assistant director, and then I believe it's then I believe there's like another review where it's like a director or deputy director reviews after that. Is that process the same, or would that be more question directed for a JMD budget?
Yeah, that's the JMD budget question, because they go through a series of things before, we actually even get to see the document. They go through a whole entire process. And so that will be one of their processes in the JMD budget staff.
Okay. And then, so after the SF-132 is then sent to OMB, and like OMB then approves the SF-132, can we go over the next steps in the process?
So the next steps would be JMD putting together their apportionment package to send to the various agencies and O&R. And that would be we would get this allotment letter and the SF-132 package.
Okay, and then once you receive this package, what would be like the next steps? Would that be recording the apportionment and allotment within UFMS after you receive that package?
Correct. That's when we'll do review the SF-132 to determine the budget entries needed to be posted for the apportionment allotment.
Okay, and then are these entries performed manually?
Yes.
Okay. And
during the CR, we do have an automated process to load the entries.
Okay, so you record manually, and then you have an automated process to validate if that entry is correct.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to confuse you. You asked me when we record the budget entries once we receive the SF-132, was that manual? I just wanted to also note that during the CR process, when we're recording budget entries, we do have an automated process. But that's
okay.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to highlight.
Oh yeah, no worries.
Okay.
And then, so in terms of document types, and we'll stick to like situations not under a continuing resolution. So, like, what document types do you record when like recording these entries for apportionment and allotment?
So for the apportionment, or the appropriation is recorded with the JAA, and in that document we can also record the apportionment and allotment, but primarily we're using a JAA document to record the appropriation and apportionment.
And what does JAA stand for, or does that just stand for like SF-132, or what does JAA stand for?
It's in the category. It stands for appropriation.
Okay.
Can you see my screen though?
Yep, I can see it. Okay, that makes sense. Okay. And then, so like, are there any like restrictions in place to prevent users from entering like an apportionment or allotment within UFMS before you receive that package of the allotment letter and like the SF-132? Or is there like any like specific guidance like within your policies that says for accountants like to wait to record that activity after you receive that the SF-132 package?
The SF-132 package is our supporting documentation to make any entries in UFMS.
Okay, so so in terms of recording the entries, you'll wait until you receive that package when recording that entry, and then in terms of then like reviewing that process, would that be done by you, Valda, or who performs the review of the entry after it's prepared?
The accountants on my team.
Okay, and then also we noted too in the past that there's a GL report that's ran to ensure that data input into the GL system is accurate. And that's like part of the review process. Is that still part of the review process for this year?
The account. Yes, that is part of the accountant review process.
Okay, and then in terms of like the review transactions, that would be like similar to like other like JJV and JSV entries, right? Like kind of it goes through like the same process of having a prepare, and then a reviewer review it.
Yeah.
The entry. Okay. And let me look. I'll pause for a second if anyone from KPMG has any questions at this moment.
I'm good for now.
Okay. And I guess going back to Treasury warrants, can we go like through the process of how that's how like Treasury warrants are recorded within UFMS? So I know you said previously that usually it's around the same time as the SF-132s and slightly later, usually with the Treasury warrants. Can we go over the process first when the DOJ like receives a Treasury warrant from Treasury, and like what that process is of recording that within UFMS?
So in UFMS, our appropriation document actually records the cash that will be related to the Treasury warrant. So when we record the appropriation in UFMS, we also record the warrant. What happens if perhaps it has not been posted at Treasury at the time of recording? The accountant will do a temporary JV to adjust the general ledger for that.
Okay, so when you're recording like the entry for SF-132, you would also record that entry of recording like the enactment of like appropriations to that Treasury warrant.
Yeah.
Okay, and then if there isn't a Treasury warrant available when you prepare that JV, it'll be a temporary JV. Is that what you said?
Yes, a temporary JV will be recorded in the general ledger to record that the warrant has not been posted at Treasury. Yeah.
Okay, and then do you have like entry on hand that would like show that scenario, or does that usually, or does that not like frequently happen where when you record this activity, there's usually like a Treasury warrant like available, and you don't really have to come across those situations where you have to record temporary JVs?
No, that happens every year at the beginning of the year, but
Okay.
I don't have that. I don't have that transaction. It's not recorded by my group. It's recorded by the actual GTAS reporting accountant.
Okay. Gotcha. And then for rescissions, what is the process for like identifying and recording the rescissions within UFMS? And then kind of like to build off that question, do you wait for like a negative Treasury warrant to be issued, or do you like research public law before like the Treasury warrant comes in? Can you just go over that process of how you identify rescissions and record rescissions?
If there are rescissions on the SF-132, we'll process a budget entry to record that in UFMS for the SF-132.
Okay, so in terms of rescissions, that would be more so the JMDB budget team determining if there's like rescissions and including that within the SF-132. And the O&R team doesn't really do anything in terms of like identifying rescissions beyond, or really the only thing you do on your team is just like looking at the rescissions on the SF-132. You don't really, not part of your process is determine that amount on the SF-132. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes, we're not. Yes, the interpretation of the public law is in JMD budget staff.
Okay, gotcha. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yes. And then like, so if you do like identify rescissions on like an SF-132, what's like the process of like recording that activity within UFMS?
That would be the same. We'll go through the same process of recording a JAA budget document, and we have a and we'll record that amount in UFMS with the JAA budget document.
Okay, so you record the JAA document, and then you would like record specific accounts that would be related to like rescissions, like unexpended appropriations adjustments, and or like permanent reduction like accounts. Is that correct? And just build off of that JAA entry. Is that correct?
Yes, the building is, or the recording and the delineation of the appropriation or the type of rescission is based on the transaction type that we use. And behind the transaction type is recording the applicable general ledger accounts that you referenced.
Okay, thank you. And then let me look at the other questions I have before moving on to transfers. Okay, so that looks like that's all the questions I have for the moment right now over SF. Well, actually, I actually have a couple more questions, actually. And these might be ones more directed to the JMD budget team. Before moving forward to transfers, for like the process of like formulating the budget and like reviewing and submitting those budget requests to OMB to be compiled into like the president's budget, have there been like any significant changes from prior year in that process?
There'll be a J&D budget staff.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah,
and then,
formulation, and all of that. Yeah, all that goes on in their office. Yeah.
Okay. And then, so like we know that DOJ wasn't like operating like under a continuing resolution, but have there been like any significant changes in the process of like recording apportionments, allotments under a continuing resolution? Or also like the process of recording like the enactment of appropriation entries under a continuing resolution. Has that process changed? Because I know in the past we've noted a lot of the process was like automated too with the continuing resolution. Have there been any significant changes in that process from prior year?
No, we're continuing to use a automatic process during the CR.
Okay. Thanks for your responses. But with that being said, we can move forward to transfers if no one from KPMG has any questions at this moment. So next we'd like to walk through the process of recording and authorizing budget transfers. Starting with, can you go over the process with how transfers are prepared? Or is that going to be a budget question?
Yeah, the component prepares the request, and JMD budget staff works with the component to complete the request and then certify it and treasure it. Then we come in.
Okay, so really like the O&R, like in terms of like transfers, really the only thing that you perform on your end is like just recording the entries with transfers. Is that correct?
Yes, we're looking to get the certified transaction from J&D budget staff, which is, hopefully you can see my screen. This is an example of a transfer that has been processed and certified in CARS. And then once we receive this, we'll take the next step.
Okay, so in terms of this document, it'll be the budget team will be preparing this, and then they send it up to Treasury. And then once Treasury approves of this SF 1151, then it's sent to your team. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then can we go over like the process of like once you receive this document of recording that activity within UFMS?
Oh, so this particular one was a transfer from an outside agency to transfer in to U.S. attorneys. So we use the same document for all the transfers. It's the JAT document, transfer document. And on that document, we can record the amount, the transfer from symbol, and the transfer to symbol, and that's basically it. That's all there is. And we use specific trans type based on the SGL that is identified on the SF 1151.
Okay, and so in terms of preparing the entry, so you look at the SF 1151. Is there any other information you look at, like the SF 132, to make sure those 1151s don't exceed that document, or is there any other information you use besides the 1151 when preparing these entries?
Oh yes, we will look at the SF. The SF 132, and if there are transfers in, we look to see that they have anticipated transfers in, and that lets us know whether we can apportion the transfer in or not.
And sorry, for anticipated transfers in, what do you look at again?
We look for that to be indicated on the SF-132.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. It may be also the same line, 1151, but can't say for sure right now.
And sorry, was that the, sorry, I'm getting my documents mixed up, or mixed together. Was that the SF-132 you said with anticipated resources? Is that correct? Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. And then, so once you record this entry within UFMS, in terms of like reviewing, what information do you look at when reviewing this entry?
We're reviewing the entry, looking for the amounts, and comparing the transfer and the transfer to symbols, and that we have a certified document attached to.
Okay, and then if you see like, or if you identify like any errors in the preparation, or what would be like the steps to like resolve that issue? Would that just be communicating with the preparer to resolve that issue?
Yes, if I saw an error in the JAT document, yes, I would communicate back with the accountant on my team to make the correction before approving.
Okay, and then also like when recording entries, have you ever noticed in the past like an 1151 exceeding an SF-132 where you had to like perform like additional steps like to resolve that issue, or is that situation not applicable to your team in the past?
There are occasions where a transfer may occur before they've had a chance to put it on their SF-132, and in that case, we record the transfer, but the funds can't be allotted.
Okay, and then for like situations like that, do you like monitor like when that SF-132 eventually comes in, or eventually comes to your team, and then do you adjust the entry after receiving that SF-132?
Yes, the entry would be adjusted per the SF-132. If they decide that they're going to apportion and allot the funds, then we would record that difference.
Okay.
Or that change in the authority.
And are those situations common a lot of times where there's like an 1151 that's like received before this 132s, or is that not really a frequent occurrence?
It's not really a frequent occurrence.
Okay. And then, so like wrapping up with a couple of last questions, or actually I have another question for these last group of questions. So we noted before, like in the past, there's like different types of like transfers within, with like DOJ, like in terms of reprogramming, like congressional directed transfers and like working capital transfers. Depending on those different types, are there like any differences to like how you record the entries? Or is it really just the same for like all those different types of entries where you record the same GLs and you still look at like the 1151s when recording those entries?
The GLs may differ based on the type of appropriation that's getting the transfer, but the actual transfer document is the same.
Okay, so the GLs might change depending on the different funds, like whether it's like a trust fund compared to like a general fund and stuff like that.
Correct.
Okay. And then, so moving on to like the last group of questions I had. So this might be more directed to a JMDB budget, or
Okay.
might be more directed to JMD budget. But building off that last question with like reprogramming, congressional directed transfers, like working capital fund transfers, are there like any other types of transfers that the DOJ or the OBD uses? Or is it just primarily those three types of transfers that you initiate in?
That might be, yeah, I think that's a JMD budget question, even though you named the most popular ones. Reprogramming, expenditure transfers, and unobligated balance transfers. Those are the most popular.
Okay, and then might be more of a budget question, but are there like any significant changes in the process for reprogramming or reallocation of funds from one budget authority to another?
Not that I know of on my end, but confirmation would come from JMD staff.
Okay, gotcha. And then another probably inquiry to the budget team after today's call, but for monitoring to see if a portion of funds are used within an appropriate time period, have there been any changes to the process from prior year?
That's a JMD budget.
Okay. And then and this might also be more of a budget question, or when we walk through the remaining like UDO walkthroughs. But in the past, we've noted that there's an automated control that prevents OBDs from obligating funds in excess of the amount allotted. Have there been any significant changes in the control from prior year, or have there been like any other additional controls to monitor ADA compliance?
No additional controls, but that control is still in place.
Okay. And then, has anything changed in the process of preparing and reviewing the SF-133 and submitting it into GTAS, or is really with the SF-130, or does that activity, does your team perform that, or does your team perform like preparing and reviewing the SF-133?
No, that's not done within the budget team.
Okay. And then, besides like items discussed during this call, has anything changed in the process from last year, and in terms of what the O&R team does, and in terms of like recording and budget activity, or anything else within the budget process that's related to the O&R team?
No new changes.
Okay. And then I think that's all the questions I had. But before wrapping up today's call, does anyone from KPMG have any remaining questions they want to go over?
Hi, this is Kim. Yes, I do have a question. If you don't mind, if I can share my screen just so the whole group can see.
Sure.
All right. Let's see if I can do this right. All right, let me know if you can see my screen. It should be the VIST SF-132 package.
Yes, we can see you.
Okay, perfect. Again, this may not be the appropriate group, so please let us know if we should contact the JMD budget staff team for this. But we were reviewing this package and noted there's this 9/11 lump sum catch-up here, even though it is the VIST appropriate, or the VIST task here. Do you know if the plan is to do a sub-allotment for this $2.6 billion, or what the plan is for that?
That is, it's not going to be a sub-allotment. It's going to be an allotment under the criminal provision. And they've actually created 2 new funds to track the specific funding. So they have like 2 different funds, and it's been allocated still under criminal division, not civil at this time.
Okay. Got it. Thank you for clarifying that.
Mm-hmm.
Erin, do you have any questions on this topic?
No. Well, so you said they're creating like 2 additional funds.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, when I say that, the naming of the fund,
Mm-hmm.
and so you have 5608 SDP, and now they have 2 more 5608 funds. That I'll have 2 separate ones, one for the $2 billion and one for the $3 billion.
Okay, got it.
For this specific 9/11 catch-up fund.
But they're still under
But they're
5608.
still under 5608, yeah.
Got it. Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anyone else from KPMG have questions on this topic, or I'll throw it back to you, Grant, to close out this meeting.
Just one more question off of that. So for those 2 funds that are being created, is this the only activity that those funds will be used for?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah, that's my last question. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, I'll stop sharing my screen now.
All right.
All right, yeah. With concluding today's call, thanks again, Valda, for walking us through the process, and for everyone else joining today's call. If you can submit the SF-132 and those GL entries that were shown during this call within WDesk, that would be appreciated on our end. And then after his call too, if we have any additional inquiries or supporting documentation requests, we'll be sure to reach out. And since QCG is on the line, there'll probably be some questions we have to direct to the JMD budget team. So just keep that on your radar, that we'll try to get those questions submitted sometime today of follow-up inquiries directed specific to the budget team.
Before we end the call, this is Monica. I just wanted to know, are you asking that we submit it on this, in the system? You said in Waukegan, is there a line item out there that we should attach it to? Was it a specific one, or?
Monica, there's a request, the initial request that I sent for this, this walkthrough, asking you your days of availability. You can send it there. I'll send you a comment so that you can go directly to the request.
Okay, thank you.
Upload it. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
And Grant, a question for you. As far as the budget team, you would just want to send them a list of questions, or are you asking for another walkthrough with that team?
I think a list of questions will suffice. Correct me if I'm wrong, Kim, or will we need to set up a separate call?
I think we can start out with, a list of questions. If there's anything that kind of grabs our attention, if you will, we'll probably set up a meeting. But I think a list of questions to start out with will suffice, Grant.
Okay, yep. So we'll try to get in those questions, Sheree, sometime today. Those follow-up questions. Yep. But yeah, with that being said, thanks again for everyone joining today's call, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.
You too. Yeah.